Okay, I wanted to share a quick tip of how to really build relationships efficiently on social media and the importance of showing up consistently in your stories, talking like this as a normal human, sharing something that is just normal part of your day, something that you enjoy or that your family does, or maybe a tip that you've learned and you want to pass on. The importance of showing up in your stories and talking to your camera, which seems so weird sometimes, especially if you're just beginning. This is going to create a relationship that people will begin to trust, even if you haven't seen them in person ever. They're a social media stranger, or if you haven't seen them since like high school and you're not sure how to bring up Plexus to these people that you really don't have a solid connection with in a long time. So the importance of talking on your stories is, one, it will create a relationship that way. So as you see who views your stories over, a few days in a row, you can then assume that they are at least following along, enjoying your content, especially as you're sprinkling in Plexus stuff. That is totally normal and fine to then be able to reach out to them in Messenger saying, hey, I think I've seen that you've been following along in my stories. This might seem totally random. Don't know if you have been looking for another stream of income or a way to feel better, but Plexus has been a blessing to our family, XYZ. Is this something you'd want to be, want to hear more about? And that way it just opens the door because you can address the awkward or the obvious that they have been following along and that you've seen that, and that's okay. And so that is one way to invite people into this conversation, by just talking in your stories and creating that relationship that way versus hundreds of people one-on-one. Another thing that builds that trust of you showing up in your stories is it creates a variety of things that you can add value to people's lives instead of just blasting Plexus. We don't want to be those salespeople that are just talking about Plexus the whole time, because then you won't have anyone following along in your stories. So be sure to be speaking in your stories and building that relationship this way, so that way you have a foundation just to be able to reach out that way and not spend tons of time in this conversation in Messenger wondering, when should I bring up Plexus? Because sometimes that is also a little bit of a tricky conversation turner if you've only been chatting for so long and then you're like, when can I bring up Plexus? And instead you have kind of established that relationship through stories by you just sharing your normal life, and then you can hop in people's messengers that have been following along when you can see who has viewed your stories. Another thing that you can do is, if you have posted a series of graphics or a little timeline of your personal business journey or Plexus journey in your stories, once you share a few graphics, you can see who has stayed to watch all of those graphics, assuming that they're clicking to see all of them, and message those people too and say, hey, I've seen that you have maybe seen my stories about the Plexus business opportunity, and reach out to those people specifically about the business. So those are my tips about how to utilize talking in your stories, the importance of talking in your stories, and being a normal human.